All right, hello everyone. Interview number two. I'm here with Mitchell Grandy. He is
Hello.
a Ashland High School 2015 alum, so he graduated the same year as me. Then we went away. We had video production together, and we went away to college, and we got to reconnect through him working right down the hallway from me at the Vinyl Marketing. So, Mitch, thank you for allowing this interview. Please give some people some backstory about you and what you do now.
Yeah, no problem, Josh. My name is Mitch Grandy. As you had prefaced, I went to Ohio University for 4 years for integrated media with a focus in post production. And I was in a minor for entrepreneurship for my first couple of years, but I had the amazing opportunity to get involved with the games research and immersive design laboratory in Athens, Ohio. And there, I actually got to be integrated in the forefront of virtual reality and XR technology coming out into the Midwest and especially in a rural area like that, and actually getting to experiment and work with technologies. My focus there started as a hardware technician, and so I was the person who understood the hardware in and out. And then I slowly led into excuse me, I led into filming. So my focus before this was filmmaking. I'm an editor and still am an editor here at Vinyl Marketing, and I had the chance to be a 360 video editor because they didn't know many editors that knew VR technology. That was a perfect fit for the job. And I've done work for the Zuckerberg General Hospital in San Francisco. I've done work for oil companies in West Virginia. I've done work for the university itself, and now I'm a editor at Final Marketing, and I've taken like a year hiatus away from virtual reality, but recently I have been getting back into programming for virtual reality and getting back into the technology that's creating the next new world, which we'll talk about.
Awesome. So obviously a lot of experience, I guess you could consider that because that was a lot, which is awesome. And so, oh, everything froze here a little bit. There he
It's
is,
all good. If it
back again.
happens, it happens, man.
Yeah, periodic freezes, no big deal. So Mitch, you kind of talked about virtual reality and extended reality, XR. Just learned what that was a few hours ago.
Proud of you.
So this is something I don't know a lot about, just to
Yeah.
preface that. So I'm going to be asking Mitch a ton of questions here. So I'm excited to learn more, but kind of explain a little bit about what XR is and even VR and what all of that meant that you were talking about dealing with the hardware and all of that good stuff.
Oh, so you didn't preface it like a question, man. So yeah, so XR, we'll start with the XR. That's a good place to start. So XR stands for extended realities, which is an encompassing term for any reality altering technologies. So the most widely adopted already is augmented reality. So Snapchat, of course, is actually one of the leading forefronts in augmented reality technology, as well as Microsoft with their lens. And that is an overlay on our existing reality. So that meaning as simple as the filters on your face and stuff. Those are awesome. But
Yeah,
that's kind of a base level of augmented reality.
sure.
And then on top of that is like it's still augmented reality, but it's just like another step better. And with that, you're having actual tracking inside of the world for not just facial tracking, but object tracking and smart tracking at that. So the computer on your head or your augmented reality system will understand looking at a specific piece of technology, say a lamp over here, it can look at that and say that's a lamp and be able to track that lamp and understand that. And then you, as the programmer or user, can elaborate on that to make it say, well, when I look at this lamp, I want to see today's weather when I wake up in the morning. Now, right now,
Mhm.
the technology is super bulky and tied to your phone, so it's not super immersive, which is where the next cool thing is virtual reality.
Yeah,
You kind of you replace the ability to augment reality to just create your own. And those have their benefits, but they also have their costs. Virtual reality is really cool and really awesome, and I have a huge proponent for it. But it has its own limitations, mostly motion sickness and adoption. Motion sickness is due to your eyes and your body's not able to understand locomotion and movement within the space. And with that, it's kind of hard to be able to walk through giant forests in virtual reality without wanting to puke in a trash can. And it varies to people. You also get VR legs. I've got pretty good VR legs nowadays. Motion sickness doesn't really bother me, but it took me 3 years to get it. So, and then the last key, adoption to that as well. It's really hard. I'm an editor, like I said, and since I focused in, I was an IT assistant when me and Josh went to the high school together. I was an IT assistant there, and I built computers and learned how to do that. And so there, I got the opportunity to build the largest virtual reality laboratory and classroom in the nation for a while. And that really comes to the point that each of those machines were like $3,000 to $4,000 each. And so you kind of need the hardware to back it up. But the cool thing is people are making all-in-one systems like the Oculus Quest. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah. It's an all-in-one system. You don't need that. And it has its limitations. You have batteries still. You have a resolution drop and performance loss. But you don't need a computer like I have already just because you want to play VR as well. And the last one is the future tech is mixed reality. And it's a combination of AR and VR. So you're melding the augmented reality experience and the lack of motion sickness with the full immersive experience with virtual reality, and able to switch between those or walk into one or the other. So you can walk out of a virtual reality experience into an augmented reality experience, or vice versa. So, yeah, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, that's a really
the
good place to
definition.
start.
So we'll be using XR. XR is easy. It's simple. It got adopted like a year or two ago for the general term. So that's what we're going to be using.
All encompassing. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. XR as my leading expert here.
You're going to sound.
Oh, got that pause game again.
It's all good.
I'm back.
All
there
good.
it is. All right, cool.
Yep, there it is. Okay, I was like, I saw you for a while. I was like, oh.
Okay, so I think just from someone that doesn't have a ton of experience with that, or doesn't have all of the tech experience, tell me where most is kind of VR or just any of the forms of XR being implemented, because I think of the Oculus Quest when I think of anything with virtual reality, or I think of Pokemon Go, right? Snapchat filters. But where are some other places that these are coming up, whether it's in businesses or colleges, that are really starting to take advantage of this technology?
Yeah, so I'll focus on two. So there's of course the big boys of any technology. And whenever a new immersive technology is coming out, and these three are going to be the ones to pick it up first. And this happened with the internet as well. These were the big three corporations or entities. First up, military. Military tech is very important. Right now, what we're seeing is they were the forefront actually of virtual reality. Way before now, they worked with NASA and the Air Force together, worked on a project that developed a thing called the Sword of Damocles. And the Sword of Damocles was the first virtual reality ray casting system that allowed, they were trying to train pilots without having to put them out into an expensive airplane. That was the idea.
Yeah.
It did not work whatsoever, but it was cool to see them do it. And they learned a lot from it. And they've been building on this technology first. Most of the time, everything that's really cool starts out as a military technology until it moves into a private technology, and then a public technology, or a public then a private technology. And so they've been working with this for years and years and years. And then finally, Oh, and another thing about the military techs. Right now, I went to South by Southwest last year, which is I can't remember. It's a big culture expo, basically. And I got to meet with some programmers and engineers from Lockheed Martin and NASA when I was there. And what they've been doing with the Microsoft Lens or Glass, I can't remember at the moment, but they're using it for their engineers. They don't have to go back to a computer and look up where exactly things go, because the lens can look at what you're trying to build and then point the marks where you want to put like a bolt in or something, and it'll tell you to what torque density you need, the exact like area of divination you're allowed to have, or like the spacing between it, so you don't have to go waste time going back up to a computer at a station and then come back underneath of whatever you're working on.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lockheed Martin and NASA have been using AR technology a lot just because it makes maintenance very easy. And
Right.
I even used it a little bit just to try if it would work. I was having trouble with the computer, and my boss had what's called a Microsoft lens. I want to call it a lens. And he
Just
had one of
call it
his, yeah, at his house. I'm going to call it that anyway. And I had a problem with the computer, and you can actually, they have a thing that's called help, and it will put a little like video in your like periphery and a chat with a person, and they can look at specific what you're seeing through your eyes and track certain points of what you're looking on. So I was trying to fix a computer, and I needed to know. I was looking at the computer, and he was tracking the points. Look at this, get in here, let me see this, and walking me through what I needed to do.
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
it's really cool, and it's also to help like maintenance people have somebody at a computer on like a factory level, somebody at a computer being able to divvy out information to their actual on-floor staff, and then being able to be the central hub for information and them help them troubleshoot whatever they're working on.
Yeah.
And then the other one is medical technology. I actually got to work on a big project at the Zuckerberg Hospital, which I was very lucky to get a hold of. We stayed in the trauma ward in the Zuckerberg Hospital for a week, 24/7. And this was to train trauma doctors, actually. So a lot of the times, a lot of nurses, when they come into the trauma ward, they get a little uneasy about what's going on in the trauma ward, because it is very, very intense. And for my time with my stay there, it was a very intense time. She was to actually.
Hold on here, Mitch. You were just you were cutting out there.
All right, what'd you hear last?
Yeah, you cut out the stressful time.
Oh,
it was
a very stressful time. Yeah. Very stressful time. But what a lot of people think that desensitization is a bad thing, like for video games and stuff. Desensitization is a very it's a good point. Like it is a weird thing to talk about. But with somebody working in a trauma ward or an ER room, the last thing you want is somebody to have a trauma experience while they're trying to save somebody's life. So you actually want them to be desensitized to violence and blood and gore and viscera before they enter the room. And so our job was to record all of this going on and then cut it up to expose patients, or not patients, incoming nurses to what it's actually like, or people who are taking up residencies. And so that actually helped. And the third one we won't talk about, but the pornography industry, that's always a thing. And that's the same thing with the internet. The military made it, the medical systems adopted it, and then pornography made it weird. So that's literally the big three on this one. Oh man! But these are really like, after we saw this, I've been growing up when I saw those three industries adopting it. Because I had already been a nerd and I love internet history and everything like that. And I was like, this is going to be something big and be taken seriously. Not a lot of people take it seriously right now, but it is something we should be watching.
Sure. And so I think that's interesting. Do you think that a lot of people aren't taking it seriously just
Oh yeah.
because they're seeing kind of just the headsets, or that's kind of where most people see it? Is that consumer version where it may not be at its full effect yet, and they don't get to see the everyday evolution of from where it is, from where it was to where it is now to where it's going?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree. 100%, because I got to see the other side. I got to peek behind the veil and see
Yeah.
what the big money was paying for.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you're totally right. Like consumers are only going to see what's they can acquire. I'm not going to be
Right.
looking at server racks when I only need a pretty good PC for what I do for my job. Like I'm not going to be doing that. So why would we
Right.
think something else for VR or XR technologies or programs too? Our program that we developed at the hospital was only made for one hospital. We developed that for one hospital, and they're
Yeah.
super proprietary, but they're really, really high quality because they are proprietary. They are exactly what this client needs. And with
Yeah.
consumer things, you're trying to appease a general audience. And the thing that's like, I'm really believing that we're sitting at the time of like, let's bring gaming back into this. Like,
Hmm.
I think mid 90s to early 2000s, that area of video games. So I think like Half-Life was coming out, and that multiplayer scene. What's not Demon? Diablo was coming out around these times. So kind of early stage
Yeah.
things, but those eras were how they got their community. They allowed their community to get involved and really be involved with what's going on in the industry and like break new rules, like how like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2 was just a Counter-Strike mod that the community made, and then they adopted it. Or
Hmm.
World of Warcraft, they started out, the original World of Warcraft was like a real-time strategy game, and they took that and then made a League of Legends or a Dota out of that. That was the transfer, and because
Right.
it was just a mod, and the industry saw it was a great thing, and that's what they went for.
Yeah.
Taking that analogy and bringing it into today and what we're talking about, we have tools right now that are super cheap to get a hold of. They
Right.
like really, really easy to get a hold of, really easy to program. Like comparatively, it's still not easy, but like it's
Yeah.
better than like what it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Like
Right.
we are living in a golden age that anyone could pick up if they have the ability and the money to pick up like a VR headset, probably the Quest. You can even program for the Quest. A lot of people do it. The cheap way to get started in it: open up Unity, a free program, use free assets, and learn free stuff online.
Oh,
Houses out.
another pause game here.
Yeah, and yep, over here too.
Yeah. All right.
And
There
you're
it
back.
is. There he is. Hey,
All right.
Mitch. Good to see you
All
again.
right.
That was at a really good spot
Good to
too.
see you again.
Yeah, this is
I
great. I'm so
know.
glad we got to do this. Um, you I got distracted when you paused, so I
No,
mean
you're
I
good.
had the memory entirely correct. You were talking about like it's easy to get your hands on the
Oh yeah.
free software and all that kind of stuff you can get with
Yeah.
it to learn the
Basically the
free
only
videos.
the startup costs really to get involved into the VR industry is a computer that can run C# and Unity, which is not that big. It's pretty standard, and a Oculus Quest. Really, I don't like
Yeah.
the Oculus systems just because of their proprietariness. I use the Samsung Odyssey, which is even cheaper than the Quest,
Hmm.
which is really fun, but you need the hardware to back it. But yeah, it's really, we're living in a golden age that's allowing for people to make content for VR however you want. And that's what's really exciting about the times right now.
Yeah, sure. I think this is a really cool conversation.
Mm,
I think one thing. Let me take a breath here.
go for it. I'm going to take a
My
drink.
question with like businesses, right? And you talked about the mechanics in NASA. And one of the videos I was watching was it was crazy. They were talking about cybersecurity,
Mm-hmm.
the scaling that virtual reality like brings in. Where there was a business in Colorado that has it where they can put their headsets on and then they can see where the risks are, and it's like a game. Um, where do you kind of see that playing into effect of in terms of how we can take maybe some more mundane tasks
Yes.
and uh, improve how we go about tackling them and
Yeah.
scaling them with virtual reality or XR with everything.
So VR especially is good for training and onboarding tasks because onboarding is not fun for anybody, especially for maintenance workers.
Yeah.
There's also these things called gargoyle packs, which are awesome. And what they are is an all-in-one system, so you can have a really pricey PC on your back
Mm-hmm.
and then a headset on top, and that allows you to walk as much as you want for like room scaling, and that
Yeah.
allows people. So let's say you're having an engineer lay out how they want to lay out an assembly line and do it fairly quickly. Well, they have these pre-made assets with the correct measurements. They don't have to be like full rendered, like with all the gears and whistles on it. They just
Yeah.
need to be the measurements they need. And they can place them in the space and see what actually fits and what doesn't, and things they might not think about, like, oh, ceiling clearance. It allows to make it a little more enjoyable and quicker for both the operator and the provider behind it.
Mm-hmm.
As another thing that we could AR is good for is actual applications. So in the field training, and like I said before, like how Lockheed Martin's using it for their measuring out holes for certain pieces of equipment, and then like my old boss being able to talk to me in my headset while I'm doing the repairs. Those are two really big things that are going on in the AR space right now for industry aside.
Okay.
And yeah, VR is really training heavy. That's where it's mainly good at. You're not going to get very good experience in the field when you can't see anything. And that's kind of the drawback. And then AR is good at actually being in the real in the meat space, if you want to call it, and being able to see what you're seeing. And there's tons of more applicable applications that we just don't know yet, and that's a really exciting thing. AR is super interesting. It's really blowing up right now. It's not my cup of tea. I have like colleagues of mine and friends of mine that are really into AR right now and volumetric scannings and stuff like that. But I think right now, unless you're really, really, really into programming, the tools are not quite there yet to be kind of accessible to the everyman. And they're also way more expensive to get a hold of than a VR headset.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things too, just talking about like AR is I think the jump from having nothing like that, and obviously with just I think you see a smartphone is a great example of how far we have come from where cell phones were to where we are now, where the jump was just like 10 years, and it's insane just how far if you just want to look at it that recently. But I think AR is one of those things where it's so basic. Oh, you froze there.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you're good.
Hey, Mitch.
AR, so yeah.
Oh, hey,
can you hear me?
How's it going? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Hey.
What was the last thing you heard?
AR is so.
Oh, it's like what I'm saying is just it was such a massive jump for us to be able to do these things that we're still at the bottom floor, I think, in a lot of ways, just from my perspective. But when do you think?
No, you're.
And just to give kind of, I mean, any kind of guess and whatever is totally fine. But when do you think we'll start to really hit and get into kind of the meat and potatoes of what this can be and when it's going to start being applied at businesses, and then obviously from there it'll start to scale back to the general public?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to guess at 20 years. That's the big thing is, and what I've been hearing a lot is 20 years, because right now they're really self-learners. Like, I was the first class to be offered a minor, not even a minor, certificate in virtual reality. And so, and we were one of the first in the nation to offer it.
Yeah.
And so we're, in our education wise, we're very, very early in our,
Sure.
we're in our infancy right now in education standpoints. And of course, you can learn this stuff. It's not that hard to learn. It's doing it that's the hard part. But that said, the big things to overcome are the adoption. The adoption is going to be, because there's this weird paradox we're in right now, that for programs to be made, there has to be hardware to support it. And for people to be wanting to buy the hardware, there has to be games to support it. And so that vicious cycle between those two concepts makes it really hard for people to want to make better hardware, because hardware is kind of stagnating at the like console range at like $300 to like $1,000 right now. 1,000 is the high end, 300 is the low end, and still with that you have to have the backup hardware to do it. But it's not going to be that simple. If there was you're not going to go buy the new Xbox for the next if the next Call of Duty's on it. That's just how it goes. They will take hits for that. Like, you might not play it. I don't play it. But they will take hits for that. They'll lose customers because of that. And the only real like Call of Duties we have are Beat Saber right now, and that's about it. And Beat Saber is fantastic. I love it, but
I didn't even know it existed.
You've never played Beat Saber?
No, dude, I've never even worn a headset.
You have to come over here sometime. I'll get you in, baby. It's so good.
Nice.
I'll send you some videos. It's insane. But you're not. But I wouldn't drop $600 to play Beat Saber.
Yeah.
Me personally, I just did it because I have these super interest, and I have the hardware capabilities to do it anyway. Why wouldn't I? So that's super hard to overcome, and that's just going to take time. It's just going to take upstarters, like people who do it as a hobby, and then it becomes a super successful thing. And then that's going to encourage more companies to want to put money in, because what we want is for AAA studios to inject money into the market, and for large name corporations to inject money into R&D and research and development. And for those two things have to happen for either one to rise as well. So that's just stagnation in development. And I think the real way that they're going to overcome this is twofold. It's all in one and drop the price. All it needs to do is make the Quest fantastic. They drop the price. It's, I think, $400 to $500. Still expensive, but it's all in one. It's a computer in itself as well. So it's competing with the console market right now, which hasn't been done before. It was considered a peripheral, but now it's its own standalone product. You don't need anything else with it. And having that control and capabilities that it allows for the user to be in control of what they have is really remarkable. Yeah. But what I've heard is don't have the catalog behind it to make it work.
Ooh. We got another pause ski going on here. You're saying that what you've heard, so what you've heard is they don't have the catalog behind it yet. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that was it. They just don't really have the catalog behind it yet to really get people to want to come in. Like, they got Beat Saber, which is cool, but it's really going to come to it's called the killer app, is what it's called. So like the PlayStation's killer app, Final Fantasy, people will go out to buy a PlayStation for the next Final Fantasy. People will go out for, I don't have a PlayStation, so I'm trying to think of things. Do you have a PlayStation?
No, I have an Xbox.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, people used to, like, the 360 era, the Halo 3 killer app. People went out to buy that for the killer app. Mario for the N64, that's a killer app. And so people are waiting to find this killer app, but the thing is, people have to go out there and make that killer app. And that takes
Right.
money, people, and education behind it, which I think we don't have enough money, we don't have enough people, and we don't have enough education at this point for it to be at the scale that it's widely accepted and not really a niche market anymore. At this
Right.
point, it's kind of a niche market, but the cool thing is, if you get yourself in now, in 20 years, you'll be like bleeding edge. Like you will
Right.
be the OGs. So
The OGs
the
of
OGs,
XR.
man. The
Yeah, yeah,
OGs.
yeah. No, that's a really good point. Um, I think, well, just my big takeaway with you saying 20 years, with that, kind of explain a little bit, because in that 20 years, it can still look, in 10 years, we can be looking at a completely different market than we are right now.
Yes.
And there can be advances by 1,000,000%, right?
Oh yeah.
So maybe just talk a little bit about what we could see in kind of those 20 years, or what you would expect, and even if you feel comfortable
Yes.
giving that answer. So
Oh, ooh, my secret sauce. I don't have it, so I wish I could.
yeah,
But what I do expect to see, like I said, all in one and cheaper prices. That is simple. But if I'm
yeah.
feeling a little frisky now, I feel
Mm,
more interested in like
that,
weird things. Ooh.
yep.
Um,
That's what we're here
so
for.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've been seeing is a focus on motion sickness, like not recovery, but diminishing.
Mm,
So there's certain techniques, more programming side, and some hardware side, like higher frame rates. So like, do you know like frame rates and like higher frame rate videos and stuff like that?
I'm kind of assuming that I know what that means, but go ahead
So
and give a
so
quick breakdown.
you know like how many like if you watch a movie, it's at 24 frames per second.
Right.
And then most sports games and soap operas are done at 60 frames per second.
Mm,
The human eye doesn't have a frame per second because that's not how the eye works. It's a continuous stream of information. But
right.
people have been finding very good effects and like good good proof that at like 100 frames per second to 120, that kind of sweet spot, it
Mhm.
diminishes nausea and motion sickness. Another
Yeah.
thing they're doing is vignetting around your eyes. So when you move your head really close or really quickly, and you change your eyes like distance, and you change your eyes point,
Hmm.
you get the blur effect. When I look at you at the screen, I can see what's around me, but it's not very easy to see it because it's not
Right.
in focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can That's actually to help with motion sickness as well, and it's
Hmm.
also harder as well if you look over here, like at your very far periphery. I'm trying to like, lock my head to the camera so I don't cheat. uh you can see the objects there, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look to your super, what color are those?
To my far peripheral right now.
Yeah, could you tell me what colors are right this like to 880 degrees? I can see my hands.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I know what colors, but I can't see them right
You
now,
can't
just
see
because I
them
know the room.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's helping you with motion sickness. It's actually defending your body to like
Uh,
limit the information your body has to intake
yeah.
and make it easier for yourself. So that area is not needed when you're turning really fast, and it would diminish motion sickness. So why wouldn't you put a vignette, which is like a circle with like blurs going into deeper darkness around it? You don't need that information while you're doing it. So why
Right.
would you do it anyway?
That's really interesting.
Frozen.
Yep. Froze.
Wait.
No, you're still frozen. Sorry, it's a good shot. It was
um,
flattering.
no. And another. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Full body tracking. That's very simple.
Mm,
So right now we're seeing technologies come out for hand tracking. Some are like physical gloves you put over your hands,
hmm.
and they have like haptic feedbacks, which is something I'll also get into later. But right now we're
Yeah.
talking about tracking, so you can actually see your physical hands in the space and interact with objects in the space with your hands, and
Yeah.
also your torso and your legs. Legs are very, very not utilized right now. People are focusing on hand tracking, but feet tracking
Right.
is also super important as well for locomotion, and to allow you to have a sense of balance and place in this space. And haptics, of course, are going to be coming out, but that's the thing about haptics that I'm kind of touchy on is it's a peripheral for a peripheral. If you see what I'm saying, like
No,
it's like
I have no
okay,
idea. So feel free to explain
so
that.
if I have my mouse here, right?
Yeah.
That's my peripheral. But let's say I had another mouse for my mouse.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's kind of stupid, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Haptics are cooler. Haptics allow you to physically touch spaces and
Gotcha.
physically interact with spaces, which
Yeah.
is cool. But it's super expensive,
Hmm.
and it's also not. Things have to be programmed to utilize them too. So unless
Yeah.
your peripheral for a peripheral is widely accepted, there's not going to be enough programs there to support it.
Right.
And then I think my favorite one of these technologies that's coming out that I'm addicted to and is so dumb and so perfect that you would never guess what it is.
You're probably right. I would never guess what it is.
I know.
'Cause I have no idea.
I know. It's a trick. It's actually super stupid, but I've read so many articles about it, and it's one of the things that wanted to get me back into programming is virtual noses. It's so stupid. I told you, didn't I?
Interesting.
So it actually drops motion sickness by 50% if you add a virtual nose.
Really?
Yes, because it gives you a point of reference when you're looking around.
Oh,
You have a mutual point of reference, and that's it. That's all
my
it is.
gosh.
It's so dumb, but I love it. But it drops motion sickness by up to 50%. It's really cool.
That also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's super dumb, super simple. And the thing is, the people don't like it at first because they're used to not having a nose in virtual reality. But we always have noses on our faces.
Right.
And we don't really notice them until we look at them. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Just blowing my mind with the vision stuff
the
and the nose. You just hammered it home with that. I never. Yeah. All right. I was gonna say Angry Birds or something, but then you said a nose, so I guess
a nose.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Archer and Slingshot games on VR already. So
yeah.
You missed your $1 million idea right there, buddy.
Oh man, that stinks. At least I can practice. I can become the Green Arrow. You know what I mean? Just
that's
be a
true.
DC comic.
Dude, archery is really cool in VR.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my favorites. I have Skyrim VR right now.
Oh, okay.
Ooh. Have you played Skyrim? Haven't you?
Are you gonna think less of me?
No, I'm just disappointed. But
yeah,
it's so good.
But and kind of just wrapping up a little bit here, Mitch. What about socially? Because I know right now, obviously, people all the time are like, "Oh, these smartphones are making us less social," right? Mostly old people. Sorry, old people, not discriminating. Just saying, it's typically you. But there's also a point, I think, to that of being able to interact through technology rather than and losing that face-to-face ability. And how do you kind of see where virtual reality will take us? Because it's a very real possibility where you could walk in, put on your headset, and you could be in a meeting room at some point in life. I'm not saying that soon, but we may be really far away from that. But having this technology kind of explode, what would be some of the social things that maybe we could just get some insight on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of contention between what's
can't hear you. Still frozen here. All right, so we had some audio problems. Ended the meeting. Now we're back. Just a refresher. Mitch is frozen. There he is. He's back, I think.
You're frozen too.
Still frozen?
I can hear you. I can still hear you. Yeah.
All right. So we're back. And the question to Mitch was, what are some of the social impacts that you see XR having on just kind of the world and how we interact with one another. And if there is just adjustments that we'll have to make or anything positive or negative, just kind of what you see um, from your perspective.
Yeah. So the big thing, it's a big point of contention. I understand where you're coming from. Like, we've been seeing like social, like not the social distancing we know now, but
Right.
well, the very social distancing within the gaming community. But those are in extreme cases. We have to understand that like those people have other issues as well. Some mental issues, some traumatic issues, and like those should be treated properly, of course. But the gaming community is actually a very, very supportive and a social environment. It's supposed to be having like fun with people around you. I
Mm-hmm.
actually wrote my final paper on the effects of sympathy in virtual environments, and I found two videos side by side of this, not the same people. It wasn't completely control group, but it wasn't a science class either, so it didn't matter. But one, they were both people having seizures at the same in a virtual space.
Mm-hmm.
One was in a virtual reality VR chat, is what it's called. It's just like a chat room for people to talk in virtual reality. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And then another one was a kid having a seizure while playing Call of Duty, and you can like the ones in Call of Duty just like made fun of them, like, oh, he's having a seizure, like fucking, or what a fatty, like all these horrible things, and like talking about him, making fun of him, and it was truly disturbing. But in the virtual reality space, you can watch it happen as the seizure is induced, not induced, but they were induced by the seizure.
Mm-hmm.
You see their avatar. I can't remember what the avatar was, but you know what an avatar is, like the whatever you pick. You see their avatar drop to the ground and shaking on the ground. And at first, people think he's like no clipping, which is when your like your transform data, which is where you are in the space, is
Mm-hmm.
mixed up in certain ways. You've seen it in video games before, just people like slammed to the floor, but they could hear him gurgling and stuff, and so like all the people like crowded around him and asked him if they knew where he was, and like one of the guys was an EMT there and like talked to like everyone through, like give him space, just like it was in a real world, even though having space in a virtual environment doesn't do anything. They
Right.
still gave him space and
Yeah.
acted like it was a real situation or an actual sincere situation. And then like the kid came out of his seizure. They talked to him like, hey, are you home alone? Do you need one of us to call an ambulance? Do you want to talk to us, one of us privately until the ambulance arrives? And all these very interesting and very human moments. And it's kind of hard to see that. And I know the communities are very important too, but I've seen other cases of sincerity and actual people acting more human in virtual reality spaces than in a normal gaming space, and sometimes in real life, because or in an internet space, not in real life, because the problem with anonymity is you're not held accountable for your actions.
Sure.
And if your actions are tied to your avatar or your gamer account or whatever you want to call it, your tag, your gamer tag, you are kind of more responsible for those options, because people usually have a tight connection to whatever their username is. I know a lot of people have, I mean, me especially, if I've had the same username for all of my gaming stuff since like early 2010 when I changed it from my really bad middle school. Well, it wasn't bad, it was just dumb. So middle school gamer
typical.
tag. Yeah, it's very typical, but it's a big jump as everyone makes. But I think having your online persona having a meaning and a connection to it is making people more susceptible to being human in a virtual reality space. So in bringing that back to the social problems of this, I think the social problem is people accepting that it's not a problem. I think
You're cutting out here a little bit.
addiction is always a problem. That's not Are we good?
Yep.
Are we back?
Yeah. No, you're good.
Okay. What was the last thing?
You were saying that thinking it's a problem, or not thinking it's a problem is a problem, and then you're
Yeah.
talking, yeah.
Yeah. So addiction is always going to be a problem. Obsession is always going to be a problem. Online stalking is going to be a problem. These horrible things that exist on internet are going to exist in a virtual reality space no matter what we do. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say that it's a bad thing just because people are acting like people. And the technology is just another extension of us in the sense of allowing us to make spaces that are extensions of ourselves, redefining who we are as somebody that's something we would rather be rather than what we're forced and born with, which is a very controversial topic about being forced into the body you're allowed to, with especially like trans rights and everything like that too. It's a super contentious thing that we're still dealing with today. And if I want to be a Shiba Inu with a bow tie on and a suit, I'm gonna damn be that, because is that who I want to be? No, I like my mustache. I'm very happy with it.
And we like your mustache. So.
Thank you. But
yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just going to come down to time. Phones took a while for people to be normalized with. The internet took a lot of time for people to be normalized with. It's just like any other technology. We're going to get older and we're going to think VR is the easiest thing ever, and then like neural implants are going to be insane or something. I don't know what's going to happen, but stuff's going to happen. People are going to get used to it. It's just like I said, it's going to take time.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's a fantastic answer. So got more information. Where you were kind of coming from, I think, was a really good perspective of addressing just kind of some of the issues that even face video games and have been facing them for a while. But yeah, so Mitch, thank you so much. This conversation has been a lot of fun.
No problem, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Learned a lot, so I think this is great. Now I can be an XR expert and give everyone my opinion on it. So
yeah, you can talk at bars and make all the ladies jealous about your intelligence of XR technology. They love that, I promise you.
Yeah, just start using all the phrases.
Like, you know
what? XR stands for extended reality, no big deal.
You lean back and you're like, hey,
excuse me.
You know what XR is?
I'll be like,
I didn't think so.
I'll be like, have you seen Good Will Hunting? Is that a yes?
I thought you were saying that was the thing you're coming up to people saying.
No.
I know so many people that come up to me and say, have you heard Good Will Hunting?
No,
but of course I've seen Good Will Hunting.
Okay, that's what I thought. You know the guy when they're like in the bar and he's like trying to act like he's smarter than he is, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I would be like if I tried to talk about XR. Yeah.
Dude, unpopular opinion. I hate Good Will Hunting. And I've watched it too many. I've watched it so many times. Thank you to Woody, Michael Woody. If you remember him.
Yeah, absolutely.
He made me watch it way too many times, and I hate it now.
That's hysterical. But all right, Mitch. Well, appreciate your time.
Dude, anytime.
All of your insight. This was great. So
you wanted to talk about anything else? I'm here. I could interview you if you want.
Hey, listen, I'll get back to you. Let me I'll let you know what I want to talk about. We'll see. I think I want to talk more about I think you should interview me about XR.
Yes. This is your exam, sir.
Exam, exactly. So all right, I'm gonna pause this and stop this. Mitch, thank you again.
Anytime, man. Be good, man.
All right.
See ya.